Welcome back to the Burstimo Music Marketing Podcast. Today we are with a familiar face on YouTube, Damian Keys. Damian, I'm going to let you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background.
Great. This place is great. Thanks for having me. Okay, so my background has always been a musician. I class myself as a musician first. Do you know the weird thing is, I mean, you probably have this, when you go to parties and people go, oh, what do you do? And you just think, oh, I hate that. Yeah. I hate that question. So musician first and foremost. And then I guess music education has always been my background. And then I got into setting up businesses. The irony was when I was a musician, I failed school, completely failed it. I got no GCSEs. Then my mum made me resit the year. So everyone, literally all my friends went off to college. I had to stay back. I was that kid. I had to stay back a year. And then I did my GCSEs a second time and I failed them all a second time. So at that point, my mum was
an achievement in itself.
Yeah, my mum was like, you're not going to be a lawyer. And I was like, don't worry, mum, I'm going to be a rock star. It's going to be fun. So I went and did a performing arts course, got into a band. Band started doing quite well. And then I was one of those people that people don't hear about that much, which is I got the major record deal, but I didn't become the household name. So I was one of those names, or the band got signed, made a record, got shelved, which means you basically just are waiting, then got dropped. And at which point I was 18 or 18 and a half, maybe 19. I was thinking, well, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? I failed everything I've ever done. So I thought, I need to go and study properly. So I went to Guildford. I left Swansea, which is where I'm from, went to Guildford. And at that point, did a music course in a place called ACM in Guildford, which they kept me on as a bass teacher. And then as part of the management team, we built that, then left there and set up our own music university, which was BIM, which was the Brighton Institute of Modern Music, which is now the British and Irish Institute of Modern Music. Sold that about 8 years ago and always played. I play 2-3 times a week. And then I have a couple of other businesses. If you'd have said to me when I was at BIM, I was a businessman, I would have cried probably or walked out. But I just think there's in today's music industry, there's so many similarities. There's so much entrepreneurialism in order to succeed that it's now one and the same. Being a musician is basically being an entrepreneur. It's kind of the same thing. And then about 2 years ago, maybe 2.5 years ago, I was building businesses. I realized that social media was not a thing anymore. It was the thing. The problem was I didn't know anything. I'd come from traditional media backgrounds of like advertising in magazines, like Guitarist and Guitar Techniques and Bass Player magazine. And Rhythm and all those things. They'd all gone away and it was all online and social media, and I didn't understand it. So I thought, I've got to learn this, otherwise I'm going to be a dinosaur. So I set up some social media platforms in order for me to just learn how social media works. So I just thought, well, what can I do? And I just thought, well, maybe I can do what I've always done, just teach musicians. That's what I've done forever. So started doing that. And then the weird thing was, about 6 months in, people started coming to me for advice on social media. And I was like, oh my God, I'm not the social media guy. I'm the music guy. But then I think there was this world of musicians going, hang on, I can see the opportunities and the control, but I don't know how to get it. Whereas back in the day when I got signed, there was no control. It was a gatekeeper. It was someone who just literally was there with a clipboard who said, you are now welcome in and we'll turf you out when they are ready. Whereas now you can take control.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people like us have come along and just gone, oh, hang on a minute. We've got the control. The industry doesn't have the control. We are the industry. We can do what we want. And now we're all trying to figure it out, just trying to figure out how the industry works, how much control have we got, how can we do this all ourselves, because then it leaves a whole new problem, which is, yes, you can do it yourself, but how do you do it yourself? Because there's so many things to do. You know, we're all in the same boat. You just go, yeah, oh, great, well, I've got to build the business or the band and market it and do the content and do the advertising and do the sales and the planning. And that's when it's starting to figure out, okay, so I can see that it can be done, but what's the reality of that?
It's so true. These gatekeepers, they controlled the industry. Even like 10 years ago, I'd say there were. And it's only been more recently that it's the audience that entirely make the decisions. So people choose now because an algorithm pushes a track in front of them, or the ad chooses that they're the target audience. It's all kind of decided now by the market decides what actually works. And I think that's amazing. I think it's a fantastic opportunity for any artist.
Do you know what I find amazing is the fact that there is that much creative freedom and there is that much entrepreneurialism. The issue I've got is the gatekeepers have gone, but people now have the imaginary gatekeepers thinking that they're still there or kind of wanting them to still be there.
For the comfort of knowing,
Because then it goes down to this lottery, because if someone says, it's the X Factor thing, if someone says yes, then I'm accepted and I'm in, and it takes away the responsibility of saying everything's down to you. The marketing, that's down to you. The content, that's down to you. Being good enough, well, that's down to you. The songwriting, that's down to you. And that's just a whole new problem, because it's now terrifying. Because before it was like, you are now facing the music industry. They will say yes or they will say no. Now it's you are facing your market, and if they say no as an artist, that's horrible for you.
Yeah, I think the fingers are pointed still at the labels. People still say they've got the control, but also pointed at the Spotify editors, the Apple editors, who everyone always thinks they're going to favor the labels.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, that platform has so many emerging artists being pushed out that I think everyone's got an even shot. I mean, we talk about it nonstop, don't we?
I know. I wish emerging artists could actually see behind the scenes of how many artists are getting signed and nothing happens with. It isn't a case of like, you get signed and that's it. You're on tour. And you've got like sellout gigs everywhere around the country. It's not. You're actually signed, giving a small budget, and then you're still kind of independent. There isn't that much support. So it's so important.
And it becomes a numbers game where, you can, I mean, I think with what we do as well, people think we're I get that all the time, anti-industry, anti-labels. And I'm like, oh, not at all. If Man United, the football team, want to come and sign a player, you're not going to say no. But if you're waiting for Man United to come and sign you, that's when you've got a problem. So if you're facing one label or that industry and it's not going to happen, you're taking away the opportunities that are there. But I'm not in any way anti-record labels. Record labels are fantastic. If they're going to come and give you £200,000 to go and invest in your product, then snap it up, get the control. But just make sure that you know what you're signing, make sure you know what you're doing. And like you said, it isn't a way of handing over responsibility. You're the artist. You have the control. You know what the music should sound like. You know what the message is. You know what you stand for. The label is effectively a bank to help you get your stuff out there in order to make money back again.
And I think a lot of our audience are still hoping to get signed. And do you have any advice for independent musicians out there to attract a record label? Kind of what the steps they would take, or is it the opposite where you don't try and attract a record label?
I think that's quite interesting. I think it's one of those things where the harder you try, it means it almost takes it away, in my opinion, because what happens is the labels are over in the kind of over on the right side, and the audience is over on the left side. You get to decide who you're pointing to. Who are you trying to impress? Who are you trying to push your music to? And if you're trying to push your music to the label, you're going to make different decisions to if you're going to push it to the audience. If you push it to the audience is all about consumption. It's all about how fast you're getting stuff out. It's all about stories. It's all about marketing, and it's all about what you stand for and your journey and social media and them being there. Look at Lewis Capaldi. I noticed you did a thing on Lewis Capaldi. It's like what he does great is he says, like, I'm some slightly, let's make no bones about it. He's not your classic looking pop star, but he says, I'll take you with me. And when I play the Brits, you're going to be backstage with me. And when I go and perform on Radio 1, you're going to be with me. And when I'm sleeping in a hotel 10 nights in a row, you're going to come with me. And we say, great, that sounds fun. I'll see what it's like to be a pop star. And because of that, we're facing the audience. Now, it's very difficult to face both. I would say in this day and age, it's very difficult. If you're facing the audience, the record companies will come sniffing. Whereas if you face the record labels, it's almost like you're kind of romancing someone who's a little bit out of your league and they're just not interested, and it gets frustrating. So for me, I'm all about, let's make something happen. And if and when a label comes knocking on the door, high five, brilliant, you've done a great job. But for me, it's which way are you pointing? And in today's getting signed as a band, it's all about facing the audience, looking after the audience like they've never been looked after.
They just want proof of an engaged audience, really, because as you said, they're the bank. And they need to make sure they have a return on that investment. And the people that have that audience, the people that have that engagement, they're more likely to pick up. We were speaking to someone from Virgin, and she was saying that they're signing people from TikTok, and that people, of course they are, like, it makes sense. Of course, if you've got an audience there, of course they're going to sign them, even if they don't have any music, because it's guaranteed sales. And I think people see that as a negative, but it's always been the case, just in a different format. It wasn't someone that was famous on TikTok. It was for another reason. There were always celebrities releasing music. It's just changed a little bit now with the way that you'd count someone as a celebrity.
What's incredible as well is, the TikTok thing's very interesting because, there's a lot of the big social media guys, Gary Vaynerchuk's banging on about TikTok.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Gary says we got to be on TikTok.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at TikTok going, I feel creepy being on TikTok. So I'm looking at TikTok going, I don't really understand what I'm supposed to do. I get what I'm supposed to do with Instagram and YouTube, but I'm looking at what I do and how I fit in. It's not for everybody. And I think, whether it's long form, short form, whether it's funny, whether it's not, it might be right for bands to be on TikTok. But I would suggest it's a certain type of band. It's the same thing as when people see Justin Bieber or Shawn Mendes and they go, ugh, it's not for me. And it's like, no, that's right. It's for them. It's perfect for them. Justin Bieber was 12 or whatever when he got signed. Shawn Mendes was 15 or 14 or whatever it was when he got signed. Perfect. But, if you're 27 years old and you're creating music in a kind of, or for musicians that are 20 to 25 years old, possibly not. It's just another way. And TikTok will have their people who get signed. Instagram will have their type of people who get signed. YouTube again. I think everyone's... that's the other thing with social media is we're all like a kid in a sweet shop. I had a meeting yesterday with someone and they were like, okay, so I'm working on Instagram and YouTube. And they were like, and Facebook. And they're like, what about TikTok? And what about LinkedIn? And I'm like, well, how many people have you got? What people don't realize about Gary Vaynerchuk is I've got a friend who was one of his business partners and we were chatting about it. And I was like, he's amazing. What he does is amazing. And he was like, he is amazing, but you got to realize that he's got about 25 to 30 people around him working on his social media. How many have you got? And I was like, one. That was it. I got one. And he's a video guy and he's brilliant. But, I can't compete with 30 people. So he can go on.
The department is 40 grand a month.
Doesn't surprise me.
That it costs to do all of that social media.
Yeah, I'm not surprised at all. Yeah, and I think with, like you said, people being like, oh, TikTok, it's because we're seeing artists blow up from it. So they're seeing that as the new shortcut.
Absolutely.
And it was the same with YouTube at a point. Not so much as anymore. People think, oh, YouTube takes too long to grow an audience, so I won't focus on that. We know that firsthand. I'm sure you do as well.
Yeah.
So now TikTok seems like the really short-term way to do it. But I haven't actually seen that many artists doing well on it, except from obviously Lil Nas X. We've done like loads of videos on TikTok because of Lil Nas X and because there are certain genres that do well on it. But I haven't seen many artists actually creating content themselves on it. I think it will start to happen over the next couple of months, but it's a difficult one.
It is.
How do you not just jump on other trends?
Well, it's very difficult because what you're saying is inherently this isn't about the music because you can't. How are you going to put 3 minutes, 4 minutes worth of song into a TikTok? You can put a little bit of it and try and push people. I understand that. But you are saying this is about personality and story and my lifestyle and everything else first. Like if you look at someone like Lauren Gray on Snapchat or Lauren Gray on Instagram, most people will go, oh, she's a singer, she's an artist. It's like, yeah, but you wouldn't know that because you'd think of her as an influencer / model / singer / artist. That's right for some people. It's just not right for others. And if you're a band of 3 or 4 people, or if you're an artist, you get different strategies and different paths, and everything's different. You've got to find the right path, and I think that's where we come in trying to say, look, these are all your options. But what people are doing is they're going, I'll do all of them, and it's like, right now you're gonna struggle if you're gonna try and do all of them. Yes, you don't want to lose an opportunity. And Gary Vaynerchuk just goes, do that one as well. And I'm like, I have to sleep. I have to eat. I can't physically do all of them, So it's about coming up with a strategy that works for you as an artist and then going with it. And then and also being malleable and adapting, as soon as like 2 weeks ago when Instagram, all of the algorithm just, I don't know if you noticed it, but you're going through your Instagram going, where'd everybody,
the organic creatures
where'd everyone go?
Yes. Yeah.
It's like, I just feel everyone's gone. And that's just Instagram saying, pay us more money.
Yeah.
So at which point you say yes or no, I'll go somewhere else, or I'll carry on. I'll just put some more money into it.
I think money is a really interesting topic because we've talked about getting signed in the major labels and what they provide. And a lot of comments are stating, I don't have the money to do this. Do you feel like money is an important thing for an artist to have, or is it possible to break as an artist without
Definitely.
investment?
It's definitely, it's interesting. It definitely helps. You know, money solves a lot of problems. I say that in business quite a lot. You know, when, you know, I've left the office today. I've got 10 people in the office. I know when I get back, there's going to be a 20-minute sit down. What's happened? What's good? What's bad? All that kind of stuff. Problems happening. Money solves a lot of those problems. Do you know what? If we had another person in, maybe we could do X, Y, and Z. But at the same point, nothing, especially in music, nothing trumps creativity. Nothing trumps the real story, the real artist. If you took someone like Lady Gaga, like there was no way on earth she wasn't going to be an international superstar. There was no way. You could start her off from the beginning in this game 10 times in a row. She'll get there because she's so interesting. She's so weird. She stands for something. She does stuff that no one else is willing to do. She'll walk on stage in something that you just go, hang on, what? And get people talking. She understands the model of where we're at more than anybody else. And also, you know, the amount of times, you'll probably have this as well, you sit down with a band and you just think, in your head, you're just thinking, you don't look like a band. Like, how are people going to go, I love you? You don't look like a band. You've got to look like the thing that you want to represent. You know, you're representing me, you know. So I think that side of things is a lot of musicians put all of their creativity into their music, and the marketing side of things is 50% of the game, and it's fun. People don't want it to be creative and they don't want it to be fun. But if you look at people like Casey Neistat, I know he's an amazing videographer, but the interesting thing about Casey Neistat is more of the ideas. It's the creativity. It's the way he does things that you just go, that's really interesting. Lewis Capaldi, whenever people talk about music versus marketing, Lewis Capaldi's perfect. You know, Lewis Capaldi, when he came out, I remember everyone was saying he's kind of like a kind of value James Arthur when he first came out.
Yes.
And then everyone was like, oh no, he's not. This guy's for real. But obviously didn't look like Justin Bieber. Great voice, decent songs. Then he came out. Then all of a sudden the social media thing hit. And then it was like, this guy's funny. This guy's really funny. And he's got an incredible voice. In fact, when you see him, you just go, how does that voice come out of that guy? Because he's funny. And then all of this power and sort of emotion comes out of him. And you think, that's weird. You've got funny and you've got emotion. But he wraps the whole thing up. And I think you don't have to be funny. Some people just are naturally funny. Some people aren't. But the creativity, what are you going to do? What am I going to do today that you will trade me 10 seconds, 30 seconds, a minute, or 5 minutes? So if I said, you know, Casey Neistat does this well. If he says, well, money aside, if I managed to get a helicopter, go in a James Bond suit, go get a rope ladder, fly over the Grand Canyon, climb down the rope ladder, take the greatest selfie, would you give me 5 minutes of your time to watch how that happened? And we just say, yeah, I would. Yeah, I'll give you 5 minutes. So he's just saying, what do I have to do to get your 5 minutes? Whereas what artists do, what most bands do, is they say, I want to do this. This is for me. I want to do it. Will you give me your time? And we say, I don't know. Maybe is it good? What am I getting? And they say, you get me. And it's like, it's not enough. If I'm going to get you, I need to know everything about you. I need to know it's about the music. It's about your personality. It's about what you stand for. If you're going to trade time, you can't just trade it by just saying, give me what I want because I want to do it my way, how I want to do it. And I expect you to give me your time, your money, if it's merch, if it's going to be paying for music or paying for merch or paying for gig tickets. If you're going to trade that, I think people don't realize how hard it is to trade time. It's really difficult because we're all in the same boat. Everyone's vying for our time. So if I'm going to give you 3 or 4 minutes, it's valuable to me.
I found YouTube an incredible lesson in that when you're creating content because the algorithm is brutal. It's so brutal. There's so many people who have like great videos and they just get out nowhere. And you've got to know that what is in it for the person watching the video.
What value are you adding?
You've got to say in that first bit of the video what's in it for the end user. It's not all about me. It is about the end user and what you're going to get out of it. And I just think that is just so important. So for artists, I say, even if you don't plan on building a YouTube channel, just try YouTube videos because it is a good lesson.
I think a lot of artists struggle with that. Like, how can they add value? Because they see the music as the value. And at the end of the day, that's always going to be the end goal, to get people to listen, to add value by giving them amazing music. But to get to that point, you need to add value in other ways. And I think that bridge is very much a struggle for a lot of artists. We always find that the content is that. But is there anything else you think that...
Yeah, I think one thing that's really interesting that is very difficult to approach with artists, that I can say because they're not here, is when you're in a band, when you're doing your music, it's everything to you. But having been in several bands, then I look back and I go, no, it was really, really good. But then when people are arguing with me on YouTube, which happens all the time, and I can call loads of names, they always bring up about 10 bands. It's always the same 5 to 10 bands. It's always Queen. It's always Fleetwood Mac. It's always Pink Floyd. It's always Rage Against the Machine. And I'm like, you are talking about the select few of the select few. You're talking about like Rage Against the Machine. I mean, there's never been a band like Rage Against the Machine. There's never been an artist or a band like Pink Floyd. You're talking about a tiny, tiny fraction who went past just music. They're part of our history, which is great. But being good enough, when you leave that band, most people look back at the band and go, no, we were really good. But they don't go, that was the greatest thing that's ever been. And I think the same thing with content. I think you've got to do something a little bit extreme. If you make good music, that, you know, in boxing terms, I'm not a boxer, but in boxing terms, making good music is a really good punch. That doesn't make a fight. Like, it's 12 rounds, 12 3-minute rounds. So you've just thrown a punch. Brilliant. What are you going to do for the next 36 minutes? Brilliant. You threw a punch. You need to throw 200 of them for 12 rounds. That and the only time you just say, no, I just want to just throw one punch and I'm out. It's like, well, that's doable. It is doable. But if you've just written, Aerosmith, Don't Want to Miss a Thing. Yeah, fine. That's your one punch and I'm out. That's all I'm going to do. You know, have you ever seen the film Happy Gilmore?
Yeah.
It's a brilliant film, and it's Adam Sandler. He's a golfer, and he does this thing where he's really good at hitting the ball a long way, but he's terrible at the rest of the game, and he's not a traditional golfer. But there's this one scene where he hits the ball, and because he can hit it so far, it's like a par 4, and he accidentally gets a hole in one, and he looks at his coach and goes, "Oh, that was a lot easier. I think I'll just do that instead." And it's just classic musicians mentality. Oh, I think I'll just do the easy. I'll just throw one punch and I'm out. I'm famous and I'm done. And so if you are the next Pink Floyd, yeah, of course, that's fantastic. But when I look at myself as a YouTuber, when I look at myself as a business person, when I look at myself as a bass player, when I look at myself as a musician and an artist, I'm good. I'm good enough to be able to make this work, as long as I'm thinking about lots and lots of punches. I'm thinking about lots of content. And so for me, I've made 700 videos.
That's incredible.
Yeah. I mean, that's stubborn is what I... But when I look back and I'm like, oh, I'm getting better at this now. It's taken me 3 years of getting better. You know, first video, I was like, I'll be PewDiePie violent.
That is so us.
Yeah. And then I was like, where is everybody? But then you realize and you just think, but at one time then you'll make that video and go, oh, hang on a minute. I did something. I did something accidentally. I made that video Stop Selling Music, which was really interesting because that wasn't even the point of the video. The point of
that one went crazy.
Yeah, because it was like, what was really weird was all I was saying is, right, okay, let's flag something up. People don't buy music anymore. So here's a couple of ways that we can start to monetize. And everyone was like, loads of people were just like, hang on, what did you just say? People aren't buying music. And I was like, no, that's... Am I
the first person to tell you that?
I was like, no, that's the obvious bit. People aren't buying music. Like, there's no CD. HMV's gone. Like, where are you going to buy music? Uproar. And in my head, I was like, I got 10,000 subscribers overnight, which for me was crazy. And I was like, I did something good. I did something really good. Weirdly enough, the video I did was no different to any other video that I didn't go in. I wasn't there thinking, you know, this is the one, you know. And I think that's the bit. I think, you know, I can imagine if you're imagine the moment in history where you are sat down listening session to Robbie Williams' Angels or a song like that, and you're just sat in the studio, or Enter Sandman or Nothing Else Matters, or those sorts of huge songs. Imagine that, because you're just sitting there thinking, this is it. You've done something unreal. Whereas obviously there's studios all over the country where people go, this is really, really good. So I think that's the bit and I think for us, what we've got to do is we've got to break out of the norm. Now everyone's started to sort of go, oh, okay, yeah, the music marketing thing. Oh, yeah. So we've got two choices. We throw small punches every single day, and we just go, look, here's something to think about. Here's something to think about. Here's something to think about. Or we go extreme, and we just go, right, this is important, and I'm gonna stretch your imagination by doing this. As soon as I can think of what that is, I'll get another 10,000, as will you guys. I mean, you're smashing on YouTube, and like, what's amazing is YouTube does this, and that's what bands need to know. Why YouTube's so important. You know, I had a meltdown in my video, which is coming out tonight. I had a meltdown yesterday because I was chatting with Morgan, and I was so frustrated. I was trying to get my point across, and I couldn't do it. And the video was effectively how you can triple your income. Which is effectively, when you look at loads of big artists, they put their music on Spotify, but they'll also do commentary tracks, they'll do live tracks, they'll do demos, and they'll put it all on Spotify. Because obviously, if you're going to go and listen to some music, if there's 20 tracks on an album, you will probably listen to 20 tracks more than you listen to 120 times, if that makes sense. When you go on YouTube, there was a band the other day that had a video on YouTube, and it was 9.5 minutes. And it had 50,000 views. And I was like, 30 more seconds and you would have had a mid-roll, my friend. You would have doubled or tripled the income. And I know it's a little bit dirty to think of it when you're thinking of it as monetary, but we can't sell music anymore. So what we can do is we can entertain and say, look, I'm going to entertain you, but you're going to have to watch 10 seconds of video adverts. Sorry, that's just the way that it is. And most people go, yeah, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
So what we've got to do is hold their imagination, hold their energy and their enthusiasm whilst they're watching that video, and then find little ways to do it. But I had a meltdown because I was like, the problem is nobody wants to do the stuff.
Yeah.
Everybody is trying to just do the bare minimum. I just want to do the bare minimum. Like someone said to me the other day, they were like, I've released a track every single month for like 6 months. And I was like, what do you want, a medal? Like, that's 6 songs. You think that's enough? Like, I'm really sorry. I don't want to be the one who tells you this, but you could do 2 a week. Like, you could do 3 a week if you want to. And that's when people go, that's ridiculous. Everyone said that about Casey Neistat doing daily vlogs. He did it for like 2 years.
The worst thing, what I find is there are free platforms. There is YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and then there'll be an algorithm change. So the Instagram one, for example, at the moment, people have an uproar. They're like, how dare they not put out the content for free to more people? And then they say it's again the situation of I don't have money, so now the people that have money win. There are literally multimillionaires out there that are putting so much money into their music, and it does not impact it. If the money's not good, no one feels connected to that artist. Money is going to get them nowhere.
I think artists just like people to blame, or people actually, not just artists, everyone in life. If something's not going your way, for some reason, your instinct is to look for other people to blame. Like Spotify at the moment, the reason there's no money in the music industry is all Spotify's fault. And I really wish I could do like this experiment for the whole planet and say, go back in time and say Spotify actually never paid you a penny, just like SoundCloud back in the day never paid you any royalties ever. They would still upload because the audience is there, the discovery is there. It's just because it's actually paying them such small royalties is causing them more problems than not paying any royalties at all, and just having it like YouTube and just letting artists sign away saying, yes, I know I'm not getting anything. And then it forces them to find money other places.
Well, that's the key. Finding money at other places. When people just say, I'm not getting any money for my music, and you go, do you know how much people pay to go to gigs nowadays? People will pay to go and see big artists. They'll go and pay 150, 200 pounds or dollars for one ticket.
Yeah, BTS was selling tickets for over £1,000.
£1,000. So it's like you just traded, but you now get all of the exposure that you want, as much as you want, and you can monetize in this way. But the sacrifice is you can't sell CDs. And everyone's like, well, that's ridiculous. It's like, no, it's good. It's a good thing. You just have to change your thinking. When you look at the big YouTubers, the amount of money that they make from merchandise, people go, well, I don't want to make it from merch. And I'm like, oh, well, I don't know what to tell you.
Merch has been around forever as well. It's always been around. It's not a new thing.
If you look at someone like David Dobrik, most of his YouTube videos have music in, so he can't even collect much AdSense at all. But he's a multimillionaire because he makes that money in other areas. I think the YouTube model is exactly the same as the music industry now. So obviously a YouTuber, their videos are the music for musicians, but there's so many ways to monetize on that.
Absolutely, there's so many ways, and it's just again about being creative, and it's about basically you're building this community and then monetizing it. I know it's a bit of a dirty way of thinking about it, but Casey Neistat doesn't think about it, I'm there for him. If Casey Neistat brings out a T-shirt, I'm like, I love Casey Neistat. I'll buy his T-shirt. I'm not just thinking, ugh, that's disgusting. He's trying to monetize me. It's like, no, I'm a fan. I'm here for you. I'm up for doing that. If he wants me to, if he said, look, I'll make videos every single day, but you're going to have to pay me £1 a day, I'd go, yeah, all right, that sounds fair. I like Casey Neistat, £1 for a video. Yeah, great, I'd pay that. And then it's up to him to say, well, it's £10 a video. And I say, well, I can't afford that, or I wouldn't pay that. But, it's just, we're in such a great time for that ways of monetizing and trading what we do. And it's such a positive thing. I think, one thing you're saying about musicians finding sort of negatives, I have this theory as well, where musicians tend to rebel. I'm a musician. That's what we do. We rebel against the system. We've been rebelling since we were kids, and that's why we're musicians, because we didn't want to get a normal job, because we wanted to learn about music or sound or being a DJ or anything it is, and we've just gone, I don't want to go and get a job. That sounds rubbish. I want to go and do this really fun thing. So you rebel against society in a way to be able to do art. Totally fair enough. But then there comes a point where you start to rebel against yourself, because you're so used to rebelling, and it's become so used to the norm that all of a sudden you start rebelling against things that will help. And I think the interesting thing of my time as a music teacher, at BIM and at ACM, and just, DK management, we train hundreds of musicians. And when people say negative things, usually when you sit them down and say, hang on, wait, stop. I know that you've taught your brain to think like this, but let's just think about this for a minute. And then you spell it out. Most of the time, people say, oh yeah, that makes sense. Because I was one of those musicians. I remember being 19 years old. Bruce, who was like my mentor, I was into Dream Theater, and like, if I could play faster, I'd play faster. If I could play more notes, I'd play more notes. And Bruce said something about Oasis, and I was like 19. This was like when Oasis were massive, and I was like, Oasis, rubbish. And he went, do you know how many albums they've sold? And I was like, yeah, but it's like paint by numbers, kind of like builder indie. And he was like, no, it's not. You might not like it, but you don't understand what they're doing. You don't understand that they're creating something that people love so much that they want to go to their shows. People are buying guitars just to learn Wonderwall. That's what they're doing. And the way he explained it, it made me go, oh yeah. But no one had told me. And that's the problem with being a musician, is no one tells you this stuff. Yeah. We're left to fend for ourselves. I was a musician. My dad was a driving instructor. My mum is like a PA in a hospital. Like, who's going to tell me about how the music industry works? So I go, I'll figure it out myself. So then I go and watch Metallica, and I'm like, oh, that's the way the music industry works. Is it? What? Metallica, who sold 100 million albums in America, is the same way as the bass player from Swansea. It's not the same thing, So I start making up my own version of what the music industry is, as do thousands of musicians every single day. So when someone challenges everything that you believe in, like the Stop Selling Music, it's a bit like a religion thing where you go, but I believe in the way that I've built this up in my head. And when you challenge it, that's when people get angry. But when you actually sit down and you challenge it with rational thinking, most people go, oh yeah, that does make sense actually. And I think that's where the music industry isn't helping. It's not helping. It's not helping artists.
I think what you said about artists rebelling in a way is very true with a lot of artists, that obviously they see being a musician as art, which it is, but also see it as, I don't have to get a proper job.
Yeah.
The thing is, being a full-time musician is harder than a 9-to-5 job.
Oh yeah.
It's being an entrepreneur, as you say. You've got to have this community that you create and then manage and then provide content for them, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's music itself. That's harder than a 9-to-5 job.
And the hours,
yeah,
the crazy hours that you put in. I mean, for me, after my band split up, and I was building BIM and ACM, and loads of tours would come in. I get offered different things, and I couldn't just go and be a musician full time. So I would just play as and when, small gigs here and there, small tours here and there. But it was tough because I'd be getting in at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I have to get up to do my day job as such, which I loved because it was building a business which I was passionate about. But still, you get in 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning, only to have to get up at normal time to work. Really, I mean, the hours are crazy. If you're trying to build a band, it's building a business. And so that's why if you all get together for 3 hours a week, it's like there's 168 hours in a week. What, you're going to do 3 hours a week? You think that's going to work? You think that's going to be successful? We've got to. It's just reality. We've got to realize how hard this is. But the other side of it is, this is doable. You can do this, but you can't do it by messing around doing it your own way. That's just trying to stumble your way into something which is very complicated. Like, no one jumps into a swimming pool, splashes around and went, I just jumped in a swimming pool, found out I'm the fastest swimmer on earth. Like, no one does that. But musicians have that mentality, which is true. We get together, we do some jamming and kind of go, right, pretty much Muse.
Yeah.
I know it's not, but we do it. I do it on YouTube. I got on YouTube and I'm like, made a video. PewDiePie.
Yeah.
Then you look back and go, not PewDiePie. Mate.
You're so right about artists kind of looking to those established artists for inspiration, and how you really should look to someone kind of maybe 2 or 3 steps above you. I mean, in terms of starting out for a musician, kind of where do you start with in terms of the content and the social media? What are those starting points to that an artist should be doing?
Knowing their worth is the biggest thing, and I think this comes in two aspects. This, to me, is so important, knowing your worth. So, am I going to go and do free gigs now? No, but at the same point, I played 18 stadiums last year, so probably not. But at the same point, when I started, did I do free gigs? I mean, every week, like literally every week for years, because I recognized that I needed to get good. And I think, in order to get good, you can get good at practicing, you can learn songs, but to be able to get good and as a musician playing gigs, different thing. You have to do hours and hours and hours of getting good. So knowing your worth. So and by that I mean, as a musician or in a band, you got to cut your teeth. You've got to learn it. You can't just say, well, we've written a song, next step is Wembley Stadium. And because there will be an example. You must get this when people just say, well, actually, and they'll name like one artist from the last 60 years that have done it. Well, actually, Sting didn't get signed until he was 42. It's like, yes, okay, fine, great, well done you. You've named one person out of a million. But knowing your worth of saying, look, to start with, I'm just going to get good. If I'm going to be, there are music colleges all over the country now. Like back in the day when I started, there wasn't. There was 3, and one of them was pretty dodgy. Now there's BTECs, there's university. Everyone's got Mac rooms and crazy facilities. There's music everywhere. So now you're looking around, going, there's 50,000 musicians leaving music college every single year. Crazy amount. So therefore, they're just spewing out, joining this where you're going to make money from, which means, the talent has to get higher and higher. So when you're sat there, for anyone who's watching this as in music college or has been there, and you're looking next to you at the row of 4 other guitarists or the 3 drummers that are sat behind you, you need to be thinking, right, how am I going to get better and beat these people? Being better than other people is always going to be the easiest and best way. If you can write that greatest song of all time, definitely helps. As a drummer, if you are the best person in your college, definitely helps. That idea of conquering your city. People always ask me, how do I build a tour? How do I build an audience outside of my city? And the answer is, well, the reason why you don't know, and the reason why you can't, is because you haven't actually conquered your city yet. Because you'd know, as soon as you conquered your city, you'd go, oh, we do the same thing. We're just going to do it in a different city 200 miles away. But you have to conquer your city.
And also haven't tried.
Absolutely,
I think that's with a lot of things, isn't it? And someone will be like, no one's engaging with my content. You're going to their Instagram. You haven't posted.
What content?
Yeah. It's the same. And it's the same with like, I haven't got any streams on this track. You've released 6.
Absolutely. One thing I noticed you say about as well is you do a lot of stuff on Spotify, which is great. I should do more of that. But whenever I watch it, I'm like, absolutely. Because musicians obviously think about social media. They don't think of Spotify as their own social media, which it is. It's just another way of doing social media. It's a way of actually entertaining people, getting people across. They can kind of engage. They can make their own playlists. They can share it. And so the amount of times that people will send me their song and they'll send it to me on something like YouTube, which is great because there might be a music video or something, but very rarely do people send me Spotify links. And I'm like, don't you want to build your... I'd be focusing on that. Get as many people across to Spotify as possible. I'd want to build the numbers up because, the more people listening, the more people are more likely to whack it into a playlist. And, I think that is something that artists aren't doing enough. They're not focusing on their Spotify and saying, right, and setting targets. I want to get first target. You know that thing where it says like, you've now got over 1,000.
Yeah.
You know, that's, you know, little targets are so important. You know, YouTube do it well. You get to your 100,000 subscribers, which is big, but when you get to your 100,000 subscribers, you get a plaque.
Did you get a plaque?
No, I'm still. I will do one day. I'm not going to stop. I'm going to keep going. I'll be 80 years old.
When we found you originally, I think you were on like 12K subscribers, or like 20K. How many are you on? Like 25, 20?
It's 52.
Wow.
50, nice.
Yeah, 52 now. So
That is going so quick.
yeah, I reckon I'll get to 100 in the next 6 months. But this is probably the most valuable lesson that musicians do is they go, oh, that sounds horrible, 3 years. But at the same point, a little bit of consistency, 3 years later, a lot of learning, a lot of free or spending money, even figuring out how it works. And all of a sudden, you know, now opportunities come, you know, you guys go, would you fancy doing a podcast? I'm like, yeah, that sounds really, really fun. I got a phone call from Berklee College of Music. Like when I was a kid, Berklee College of Music was like, everybody wants to study there. And they were like, do you want to come and do a workshop, a masterclass? I was like, I'm booking my flight. How cool is that? You know, opportunities come from, you know, from YouTube or from social media, but especially YouTube. I'm such a big fan of YouTube. It just takes time. But the subscribers, to get that first 100, so hard. To get to 1,000, so hard. And then all of a sudden YouTube does something. It like opens the door and goes, okay, come on in. And then all of a sudden you start to build.
Yeah, we've got one video just taking off at the moment and it's about 4 months old.
Right.
We don't know why. Why did YouTube decide now is the time it's a good
We'll give
video?
that one
I'll tell you why it is. It's good. It is, honestly, because what happens is people will watch a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes of a video. You'll have your average watch time if you go onto your, you know, not Social Blade, whatever the other one we use is. And then one of them will get 5 minutes instead of 3 minutes. And YouTube goes, this one's better. This one's better. And so therefore it says, I'll show it to a few more people and a few more people. And as ironically enough is the people who judge whether it's better are literally the people who watch YouTube. We don't get to say. So it's like, well, why? It's like I've done the same thing for the last year, but for some reason I made a better video.
Yeah.
So
what I love about YouTube, and I always say it, is it's like buying real estate. So we've got 6-month-old videos just paying dividends, generating views all of the time, and you're growing something. Instagram, it's not going to be around forever. What we put one post up, maybe we'll put some money behind promoting it. It dies after a week maximum. And it's just if artists can get on YouTube and start creating content.
Yeah, and it's I call it a digital pension because I'm growing it. But if YouTube goes away, I'll just find the next thing. Because what people forget as well is when you do that and you put a 10 or 20 or 30 quid into a post, people are going, oh yeah, I recognize YouTube. So, you know, all of a sudden TikTok goes away and a new thing comes on. You start making content for that, pushing some money. It's not like people are going to go, who are you? They're going to go, oh, I remember you. So everything that you're doing, every piece of content you're doing, every bit of money that you're putting into it, it's not just building your Instagram, it's building people's perception of you. YouTube or Instagram is just the way that you can do it. YouTube works for me. Instagram doesn't work for me because I look like this and because I don't really, I just don't have that kind of Instagram-y type stuff. And most people going down their feed don't want me shouting at them over breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people don't want us shouting at them either, and they tell us that.
Yeah, we put the big banners on and the big kind of clickbait titles on Instagram, and it kind of worked, and then we've taken it off now. But like looking at our stats, those banners really just they worked. That was the only way of really getting our Instagram to grow is using them.
Do you know what? You know, I know it's sort of coming sort of to them, but one thing I would suggest, if I was going to give one bit of advice for bands, it's to look at certain trends on things like YouTube and Instagram. If you look at where YouTube is now, we do educational type stuff, but I notice whenever I say, well, put my money where my mouth is, rather than just saying, I'm going to do this or I'm going to educate, if you just say, I'll show you. And so you get this kind of Matt Diavella kind of, I did this for 30 days and this is what happened. Bands should be doing that. I made this track in 5 minutes. This is how I did it, because that is where people can buy into the behind the scenes. But what people do is they just carry their phone around going, and this is me in the studio. Like, no, I don't want to see that. I don't care about that so much. Unless you're Lewis Capaldi, I get it. But other than that, what I want to see is all the other stuff. So when you say, this is how I wrote this song, I'm going to actually document the process and how it worked. That's when people go, oh, that was quite interesting.
Yeah, that's like Blanks, isn't it? Is his name
He's
Blanks?
amazing.
Amazing. The hour, he's the one I sent. He does like a song in an hour. His music at Spotify at the moment is blowing up. He's getting his Instagram following is insane as well. But we've got this theory at the moment where artists should rename their music videos something like this music video only cost me £1.
Yes.
Something like that.
Absolutely.
Get the views in. You can get the engagement up, and then you can change the title if you want to.
You need to do a video on that. You guys need to do a video on that, but you need to clickbait it because people will hate it. But I promise you, A, you're right. So you're right. And number two, people will be they'll either say that's brilliant or they'll be an utter outrage.
Probably both.
Yeah.
We always get both.
But the way you need to get your point across needs to be clickbaited. So when people see it, they just go, oh, and then they watch it and go, how dare you change the music? But you're right. That's consumption now. People say this song cost me £1 rather than, loving the sun or something. It's like, oh, I don't care about loving this cost me £1. I'll watch this, and then you get the song anyway. It's like it's just smart. It's a smart way of
musicians need to learn the art of clickbait as well, even just by reading tabloid newspapers and figuring out how they do it, and that will teach you how to get someone's attention and how to get someone to invest in what you have to say.
Clickbait's always been a thing, and it's just because now it's on socials, people think it's
got
new.
A name.
Yeah, it was on billboards. It was in newspapers. It's
when
just
has clickbait ever not been there in people's lives since we've been alive? It's always been there. It's just now it's on YouTube. People have got a name for it. It. What difference was it in like 1960 in a newspaper? Like, what do you think a headline is? Like,
I think we're gonna have to bring it to an end.
That was fun. Thank you so much.
Before we bring it to a close, do you want to quickly talk about your book?
Yeah.
Giving you the opportunity to plug it. Go on.
Yeah, I wrote a book. Do you know what's really crazy is I just like creating stuff, and I've only ever read one book, which was Fantastic Mr. Fox, obviously. I failed all my GCSEs. Very good book. And then I got asked for a publishing company offered me a publishing deal to write a book. And the story was I went to London, went to meet this guy. He was as old as the sun. I mean, this guy was old.
Hope he's listening. Give him a shout out.
Definitely dead. This was like 2 years ago. Anyway, so I was going to call it Plan B. That was going to be the name of the book. And he was like, you can't call it that. And I was like, it's my book. I'll call it what I want. Anyway, so I left and I was like, what do I want to write a book for? And then by the time I got from London to Brighton, I was like, I'm going to write my own book and it's going to be brilliant. And so I wrote the first book, which was Rule Breaker's Guide. And then I remember having the book launch party and just thinking, what a stupid thing to do. I wrote a book. And then I was like, why did I write it on social media when I'm a musician? So I was like, I need to do a book on music. So I took the title of Stop Selling Music. And I was just thinking 20 years of my life in one book. The audiobook just went live yesterday or the day before, which is me, my dulcet tones reading. I just like, you'll be the same. I just love this stuff. Like, sitting with musicians. When I was at BIM, I didn't like sitting with financial investors and advisor and all that kind of stuff, or accountants. Sitting down with a guitarist, talking about their band. Coolest. I'll do that. I'll do that every day until the day I die. It's the best thing in the world.
Cool. Nice. I mean, I'm going to have to listen now.
Yeah. Do you want to also let people know where they can find you? Instagram tab?
Yeah,
YouTube?
I mean, Damian Keys. You have to spell my name. It's DAMIANKEYES. But I'm on all social media. It all comes through to my phone. So I try to get back to everyone, same as you guys, the same thing. I'm doing my best to actually make it a community and talk to people, help people. But at the same point, there's a lot of messages coming through every day. But yeah.
Cool.
Get in touch.
Thanks very much for coming on to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Also plug our channel as well. If you like this, do like it and subscribe if you're not subscribed already.
It is great. What you guys are doing is brilliant.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.